Alright, we are in Chapter 7, Section 1. This section is all about depreciation. So we're going to look at 4 different ways to use depreciation. So this could be a car, it could be a large machine. Usually it's something that will wear out. Some type of machine is usually the most common, but it could still be like anything that has a resource that will deplete. So like it could be a tract of farmland, and then it's just not useful anymore unless you rotate the crops or something. So like there's lots of different ways that this can be applicable to many different businesses. So the example we're going to look at first is example 7, and there are 3 parts to it. So part A is the straight line method, part B is the sum of years digits method, and then part C is the double declining balance method. So we're going to look at the different ways that this depreciates all at once. So first thing we have to do is we're going to define our variables. So there are 4 main variables that we're working with here. So the first one is C, and that's the cost of the object. The next one is S, that's your scrap value. Okay, it's also called the salvage value. It can be called other things too. One of the other videos I link you to is called something else. And then W is the wearing value. Okay, wearing is always cost minus scrap, so that's how long we anticipate, or the value lost as we use the object. So let's look at the straight line method first. Okay, so here our situation is a company purchases a car for $20,000. It's expected that the car will have a useful life of 5 years, in which the time it can be sold for $4,000. Compute the depreciation allowance for 1 year using the straight line method. So here our cost is $20,000. That's how much we purchase it for. And then we have a useful life of 5 years. That'll come in here in a minute. And the car is sold for $4,000. So that would be our scrap value. So this is how much we can sell it for when we're done with it. So in this case, we're done with it in 5 years, so we can sell it for $4,000. So that means our wearing is going to be the cost minus the scrap, so it's going to be 20,000 minus 4,000, which is 16,000. Okay, so that means we wear $16,000 of its $16,000 of its useful life. Now here in the straight line method, we're talking about depreciation, so I use D to substitute for depreciation. Okay, D for depreciation. So again, there's multiple ways we can calculate this. In the straight line method, D is going to be the wearing value divided by the number of years. Okay, so in our case, it's going to be 16,000 divided by 5, because we have 5 years here. So when we do 16,000 divided by 5, we get 3,200. So what this means is that each year we expect to have depreciation of $3,200 every year. So now what we're going to look at is we're going to fill out a table. So in our table we have 4 main columns that we're going to be looking at. The first one is the years. The second one is our depreciation, so I'm just going to call that D. I'll write it here for you first. And later ones I'm just going to write D. And then we have our accumulated depreciation, so that's just the sum of all the depreciation so far. Okay, and then last we have our book value. Okay, so book value is the cost at the end of the year after we apply the depreciation. So I usually abbreviate this BV later, but the idea here is that the book value is always going to be the previous book value minus that year's depreciation. Okay, so it's going to be, to get this one, I take this minus this to get this. Okay, so now for our years, we're going to start with year 0. And in year 0, we have no depreciation, no accumulated depreciation, and our book value is going to be our cost, C, so $20,000. And you don't always have to put that line there. I just find it helpful to do that. So now let's move on to year 1. Okay, so in year one, we're going to have a depreciation of 3,200. So far all the depreciation would just be the 3,200 because we've only had 1 year. And then our cost is this is gonna be 20,000 minus 3,200. So again, that's our previous book value minus the depreciation. And when we do that, we get 16,800. I'm just gonna write my work in here just for good notes. But once you get the hang of these tables, you really don't need to do that. Okay. In year two, we have the same amount. So that means now our accumulated depreciation is going to be the previous accumulated depreciation plus this one. So here it's going to be 3,200 plus itself. So we get 6,400. And then our D here is going to be 16,800 minus our 3,200. So again, our previous book value minus our current depreciation, which should give us 13,600. Third year, gonna have the same depreciation. Here we're gonna add 6,400 plus our 3,200 to get our accumulated depreciation. So that should give us 9,600. And then to get the current depreciation, we're gonna take the previous 13,600 and subtract our 3,200. So again, we're taking the previous book value minus the D. And that would give us, after 3 years, we estimate the car is worth 10,400. In year 4 is the same depreciation. Whoops, extra 0. Okay, same depreciation. And then our accumulated again is going to be the previous plus the current. So 9,600 plus 3,200, which is going to give us 12,800. And our current book value is going to be last year's book value minus our depreciation. So again, this one minus this one, which gives us 7,200. And our last line is going to look real similar. So here our last one should always be the wearing values. This last accumulated depreciation should always be your wearing value, and then this last book value should always be your scrap. Okay. Now when we take 7,200 and we subtract 3,200, we do indeed get our 4,000. So we know we did it correctly. So next we're going to take a look at one where all the depreciations are different